Here's the truth most men don't want to hear, and even fewer are willing to test. 40 days of semen retention doesn't turn you into a monk, a god, or some glowing spiritual avatar. It turns you into something far more dangerous. A man who can no longer lie to himself. That's why Mozo quit long before day 40, not because it's hard physically, but because the mental exposure becomes unbearable. When you stop ejaculating, when you stop dumping your drive into 5 seconds of relief, your entire inner economy changes. Energy doesn't disappear. It accumulates, and accumulated energy forces decisions. In the first few days, nothing dramatic happens. Your body is just confused. It expects release. It expects the usual cycle: tension, stimulation, escape. When that escape doesn't come, the mind starts bargaining. Just once, just to sleep. Just to take the edge off. This is where most men fail, because they don't realize they are not fighting lust. They're fighting conditioning. You've trained your nervous system to associate discomfort with orgasm as the solution. Retention breaks that association. Discomfort remains. You don't die. You don't explode. You sit with it, and that's the first thing you stop chasing. Instant relief. By week 1, your urges spike and then flatten. This is where the myth breaks. You expect to be horny all the time. Instead, something else creeps in. Irritation. You're more easily annoyed. Noise bothers you. People feel slower. Conversations feel pointless. That's not aggression. That's clarity emerging without anesthesia. Porn, scrolling, junk food, random dopamine. These were all tools you used to soften reality. When you remove ejaculation, the biggest dopamine nuke, the smaller ones lose power. You start noticing how empty they are. You stop chasing cheap stimulation because it simply doesn't hit anymore. Around day 10 to 15, something uncomfortable happens. Motivation returns, but direction doesn't. You feel driven, but restless. This is where men relapse, and then rationalize it as balance. In reality, this phase exposes how directionless your life actually is. Ejaculation was a pacifier. Without it, the question becomes unavoidable. Where is this energy supposed to go? If you don't answer that consciously, your body will default back to old habits. If you do answer it, even imperfectly, something shifts. You start moving. You clean your room. You train harder. You work longer without forcing it. Not because retention gives you superpowers, but because energy demands an outlet. By the 3rd week, you stop chasing validation without even trying. This is subtle but brutal. You realize how much of your behavior was performative. Dressing for attention, talking for approval, posting for reactions, fantasizing about women you haven't earned. When you retain, sexual fantasy becomes expensive. It drains you instead of exciting you. You feel it immediately, so you stop. Not out of morality, but efficiency. You don't want to waste fuel. This is when men say women started noticing me. That's half true. What actually happened is you stop chasing them energetically. Neediness evaporates when your body is no longer begging for release. Around day 25 to 30, the mind quiets in a way that's almost unsettling. You're not you're grounded. Your thoughts become slower, heavier, more deliberate. You speak less, but with more certainty. This is where you stop chasing noise. Music, podcasts, endless videos, they feel intrusive. Silence becomes tolerable, then preferable. And in that silence, buried dissatisfactions or regret, missed opportunities, wasted years. This is the phase no one markets, because it doesn't sell. Retention doesn't make you feel good. It makes you feel honest. By day 35, your relationship with desire changes completely. Desire no longer screams. It informs. You still notice women. You still feel attraction. But it doesn't hijack you. You don't imagine. You don't chase. You observe. And because you're no longer leaking sexual energy through fantasy, it consolidates into presence. Your eye contact sharpens. Your posture adjusts without effort. Your voice drops. Not artificially, but because you're not rushing to please. You stop chasing sex because you finally understand something brutal. Chasing is a confession of weakness. Attraction works in the opposite direction. At 40 days, the biggest shift is not sexual at all. It's existential. You stop chasing your old self. The version of you that was comfortable being average, distracted, and endlessly entertained starts to feel foreign. You see through your own excuses. You recognize how often you chose pleasure over progress, and then hid behind philosophy, spirituality, or humor to justify it. Retention strips that away. Not because semen is magical, but because discipline compounds. One disciplined act forces another. You can't hold sexual discipline and tolerate chaos everywhere else. Something has to give. You stop chasing motivation because you realize motivation was never the problem. Structure was. You stop chasing confidence because confidence emerges naturally when you keep promises to yourself. You stop chasing purpose because purpose reveals itself through sustained effort, not contemplation. And perhaps the most uncomfortable truth, you stop chasing happiness. You understand that happiness was a side effect you tried to consume directly, and it never worked. Retention teaches you to build conditions instead of chasing feelings. This is why most men don't make it to 40 days, not because they're weak, but because they're unprepared for the identity shift. Ejaculation allowed them to remain fragmented. Retention demands coherence. Your words must align with your actions. Your ambitions must align with your habits. Your self-image must align with reality. That alignment is painful. It exposes gaps, and those gaps demand work. After 40 days, you don't feel like bragging. You feel like building. You don't announce it. You don't evangelize it. You don't turn it into content unless you're honest about the cost. Because the real benefit of semen retention is not sexual control. It's self-respect. And self-respect is quiet, heavy, and non-negotiable. You stop chasing distractions because your mind finally has weight. You stop chasing women because you're busy becoming the kind of man they orbit naturally. You stop chasing pleasure because pleasure without progress feels hollow. You stop chasing escape because you've learned how to sit inside discomfort without flinching. And here's the final truth no one tells you. Semen retention doesn't change your life. It removes the mask from it. If your life is empty, retention will make it painfully obvious. If your life has direction, retention will accelerate it violently. It is not a solution. It is a magnifier. So when someone asks what, you stop chasing after 40 days, the answer is simple and ruthless. You stop chasing because you finally realize you are running from yourself. And once you stop running, there's nowhere to hide, only forward movement or collapse. Most choose collapse. A few choose construction. Retention doesn't decide that for you. It just removes your ability to pretend you didn't have a choice.